The room was loud with chatter when my aunt's voice cut through it. We were packed into the school hall for the parents' meeting, plastic chairs scraping the floor. I stood near the back, hoping to stay unnoticed. Then Aunt Pauline laughed and said, loud enough for people to turn, that I was never dependable and always dropping the ball. She shook her head like she was tired of defending me. A few parents chuckled. Others whispered. My face burned. She kept going, saying the school should not expect much from me because I never followed through. Each word felt like a slap. I wanted to disappear. I had helped this school for years, but none of that mattered in this moment. All they saw was what she said. I felt small, like the floor might swallow me. My chest tightened and my hands shook. I looked around, hoping someone would speak up, but no one did. A teacher nearby frowned, clearly confused. That made it worse. This wasn't just embarrassment. This was my name being crushed in public. And I had no idea how I would survive the rest of that meeting. I stayed frozen in my spot as the noise slowly returned to the room. Parents leaned toward each other, repeating my aunt's words like facts. I could hear my name followed by Unreliable more than once. That hurt more than the laughter. As I stood there, memories rushed in. I remembered Aunt Pauline canceling plans last minute and blaming me. I remembered her telling people I forgot things she never even told me about. I had brushed it off for years, thinking it was harmless talk. Now I saw it wasn't. She had been shaping a story about me for a long time. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry. Crying would prove her right in their eyes. I swallowed hard and tried to breathe slowly. I noticed one of the teachers watching me closely, like she knew something didn't add up. That small detail kept me standing. I told myself to leave early. I didn't belong in that room anymore. Just as I shifted toward the door, a school staff member stepped in front of me gently and asked if I was leaving already. Her voice was kind, not accusing. That simple question made me pause. Maybe not everyone believed the story being told about me. I told the staff member I wasn't feeling well. It wasn't a lie. My stomach felt twisted, and my head was spinning. She nodded but didn't move away. Instead, she said the principal would be arriving soon and that it might be good to stay. That confused me. The principal rarely attended these meetings in person. I glanced toward Aunt Pauline. She stood tall, chatting proudly with other parents, clearly enjoying the attention. She hadn't even looked my way since humiliating me. I stepped back into the hall, choosing a seat near the wall. As I sat, I noticed whispers die down when people saw me again. Some looked embarrassed, others looked curious. That curiosity scared me more than the laughter. While waiting, I thought about all the times I had helped the school quietly, fixing broken chairs, organizing books, covering costs when supplies ran short. I never asked for credit. I believed good work spoke for itself. But now I wondered if silence had been a mistake. Aunt Pauline's voice had spoken louder than my actions. Then the doors at the front of the hall opened. The principal walked in, calm and focused. The entire room shifted. Even my aunt straightened, confident. My heart dropped. If she had told him the same things, this could get worse. The principal, Mr. Bello, greeted everyone and thanked them for coming. His voice was steady and warm. I tried to read his face, but it gave nothing away. He spoke about teamwork and community support, words that felt heavy after what had just happened. As he talked, my mind drifted back to how I became involved with the school. Years ago, when my cousin struggled here, I started helping out. I stayed late, cleaned classrooms, and helped teachers prepare events. I did it quietly, after work, often unnoticed. That was how I liked it. Aunt Pauline had never approved. She said I was wasting time and should focus on myself. When I didn't stop, she slowly turned cold. I never thought she would turn cruel. Mr. Bello paused and scanned the room. His eyes moved slowly, then stopped on me. My breath caught. He asked if I was present. My name echoed in the hall. People turned to look at me again, but this time it felt different. Curious, not mocking. I raised my hand slightly, unsure if I should even respond. Aunt Pauline's smile faded just a little. It was the first crack, and for the first time that evening I felt something other than shame. I felt tension. Something was about to happen. Mr. Bello nodded when he saw me and continued speaking without explanation. That was somehow worse. My mind raced, filling the silence with fear. I imagined complaints, warnings, and quiet judgments. Instead, he began thanking parents and volunteers for their support over the past year. He mentioned repaired classrooms, organized events, and emergency help during difficult times. Each example felt familiar. Too familiar. My pulse quickened. Around me, parents nodded, proud of the school's progress. Aunt Pauline folded her arms, clearly pleased, as if these successes proved her point about being involved. She glanced at me once, her eyes sharp, daring me to react. Mr. Bello then said some of this help came from someone who never asked for recognition. The room grew quiet. He described late nights, personal funds, and stepping in during a crisis when no one else could. My throat tightened. That crisis replayed in my mind. The broken water line. The flooded classrooms. The panic. I remembered staying until morning, calling contacts, paying workers myself. I had told no one except the office. Mr. Bello paused again, letting the silence stretch. The weight of it pressed on my chest. Aunt Pauline's face shifted from pride to confusion. And I knew, deep down, that the story about me was about to change. Mr. Bello finally said my name clearly and thanked me for my dedication to the school. Gasps filled the hall. I felt dizzy, like the floor had tilted. Parents turned fully in their seats. Some stared. Others whispered again, but this time my name carried a different tone. He explained that during the water crisis months ago, I had stepped in when it mattered most. He said the school might have closed for weeks, if not for my quick action. Hearing it out loud made my eyes burn. I had convinced myself it didn't matter. Now it did. Aunt Pauline froze. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She looked around, searching for support, but found none. The story she had told minutes earlier no longer fit. Mr. Bello didn't stop there. He said reliability wasn't about talking loudly, but about showing up when needed. Those words landed hard. I saw parents nodding. One even clapped, before quickly stopping. I wanted to sink into my chair and also stand up at the same time. Pride and fear tangled inside me. Mr. Bello smiled gently at me and said there was more to share. My heart skipped. If this was only the beginning, I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next. As Mr. Bello continued, I felt the room lean in. He spoke about records, emails, and quiet contributions logged over years. Each detail matched moments I remembered clearly. I had never imagined anyone paid that close attention. A teacher stood and confirmed his words. She explained how I helped without needing reminders. Her voice was firm, honest. That validation felt unreal. I glanced at Aunt Pauline. Her face was pale now. She avoided my eyes, focusing instead on her hands. The confidence she had earlier was gone, replaced by tension. Parents began murmuring again, but now the tone was regretful. Some looked at me with apology in their eyes. Others seemed impressed. The shift was dizzying. Mr. Bello said reliability often hides behind silence, and that people who speak the loudest are not always the ones doing the work. That line hit the room hard. It hit my aunt harder. She cleared her throat and tried to laugh it off, saying, "I must have gotten lucky this once." The sound was thin and unconvincing. A few parents frowned at her. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about revenge. It was about truth finally standing on its own. And truth, once seen, could not be unseen. The meeting paused for questions, but none came. People were too busy processing what they had just heard. I sat quietly, hands folded, trying to steady my breathing. Mr. Bello looked directly at Aunt Pauline and asked if she had anything to add. The room went still. She shifted in her chair and smiled tightly, saying families sometimes misunderstand each other. Her voice lacked strength. A parent near her spoke up, saying they had repeated what she said earlier and now felt uncomfortable. That comment cut deeper than any insult. Aunt Pauline's shoulders slumped. Mr. Bello nodded and reminded everyone to speak carefully about others, especially in public. He said words could build or destroy trust. I felt those words wrap around me like a shield. As the meeting resumed, several parents glanced back at me. One mouthed, "Thank you." Another nodded with respect. Each small gesture healed something inside me. I noticed Aunt Pauline shrinking into her seat, no longer the center of attention. The room had moved on, leaving her behind. But the story wasn't over. I could feel it. Something important still waited beyond this moment. And as the meeting came to an end, Mr. Bello asked me to stay behind. My heart raced again, unsure what this next chapter would bring. When the hall emptied, the quiet felt heavy. Chairs scraped, voices faded, and soon only a few teachers remained. Aunt Pauline left quickly without a word, her steps hurried and uneven. She didn't look back. Mr. Bello approached me with a calm smile. He thanked me again, this time privately. He said he knew about my work long before tonight. Hearing that made me laugh softly in disbelief. He explained that my aunt had once questioned my involvement and suggested I was unreliable. Instead of believing her, he checked the records. That choice changed everything. He told me the school planned to offer me a formal role as a community coordinator. The words stunned me. I had never imagined being recognized like that. At the same time, I felt a strange sadness. The person who should have known me best had tried to erase me instead. Mr. Bello placed a hand on my shoulder and said integrity always finds its moment. It might take time, but it arrives. As I left the hall, parents stopped me to express gratitude. Each conversation felt unreal, like stepping into a new life. Outside, the air felt lighter. I knew the damage from years of lies wouldn't vanish overnight. But tonight, something important had shifted. My name had been returned to me. At home that night, I replayed everything again and again. The laughter, the shock, the truth rising. Sleep came slowly. The next morning, messages flooded my phone. Parents asked for advice. Teachers thanked me. Even people who once avoided me now wanted to talk. The change was sudden and overwhelming. But one message was missing. Aunt Pauline said nothing. That silence hurt more than her words ever had. Later that day, she showed up unannounced. Her eyes were red, her voice tight. She accused me of embarrassing her on purpose. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, I calmly told her I never planned any of it. I only showed up as I always had. Truth did the rest. She scoffed then softened. She said she felt threatened by my consistency. Hearing that was painful, but honest. I told her I didn't want revenge. I wanted respect. She nodded slowly, realizing how much she had lost. As she left, I felt no victory, only closure beginning to form. The school role offer sat on my table, waiting. I knew accepting it would change things forever. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that change. Accepting the role meant stepping into visibility. The first week was hard. People watched me closely, waiting for mistakes. I stayed focused. I organized schedules, helped with repairs, and listened to concerns. Each completed task rebuilt trust brick by brick. Parents stopped doubting. Teachers relied on me. The label unreliable faded with every action. One afternoon, I overheard someone repeating my aunt's old words, then correcting themselves. That correction mattered more than praise. Aunt Pauline kept her distance. When we crossed paths, she looked uncertain, unsure how to speak to me now. At a school event, Mr. Bello publicly introduced me as part of the leadership team. Applause followed. I caught my breath and smiled. I thought about the person I was before that meeting, quiet, doubting, carrying other people's stories. Now I carried my own. The journey wasn't over. Trust takes time, but the truth had finally taken root, and every step forward proved something important, not just to others, but to myself. I was never unreliable. I was simply unseen. Until the moment the right voice spoke. The second week in my new role tested me fast. A supplier failed to deliver chairs for a school event, and panic spread among staff. I felt eyes on me, waiting to see if my aunt's words would come true. I didn't panic. I made calls, adjusted plans, and borrowed chairs from a nearby center. By afternoon, the problem was solved. Parents noticed. A teacher thanked me quietly. That quiet respect meant more than applause. Still, I sensed pressure building. People now expected consistency, not excuses. That evening, I overheard two parents talking. One repeated my aunt's old claim, then stopped and said, "Actually, that's not true anymore." Hearing that correction felt like a small victory. Later, Mr. Bello emailed me praise and reminded me that leadership is tested during stress. His trust mattered. But not everyone was ready to let go of the past. I learned that my aunt had been telling relatives I had changed, only because I wanted attention. The words stung, but they no longer defined me. I realized something important that night. Proving reliability once wasn't enough. I would have to live it daily, and I was ready to do that, even if it meant standing alone for a while longer. The next challenge came from an unexpected place. A parent accused me of misplacing funds for a small school project. The claim spread quickly, reopening old doubts. My chest tightened, but I didn't react in anger. I gathered receipts, emails, and approval notes. I walked straight to the office and laid everything out clearly. The truth was simple. The funds were accounted for. The mistake belonged to someone else. When the issue was cleared, the same parent apologized publicly. That moment mattered more than being right. It showed others how I handled pressure. Later, I found out my aunt had questioned the funds first, quietly planting suspicion. Instead of confronting her, I stayed focused on my work. I refused to be pulled backward. That afternoon, Mr. Bello reminded staff that trust grows through calm responses, not loud defenses. I felt seen again. At home, I struggled with anger. I wanted to confront my aunt and demand an apology. But I also knew real strength came from letting truth stand without force. By nightfall, messages of support came in. People said they admired how I handled the situation. I realized my reputation was rebuilding, not through words, but through choices. The storm passed and I stood stronger. But I sensed the final test would involve my aunt directly. And that moment was coming soon. The school announced a major parents' forum, larger than any before. I was asked to help organize it. The responsibility was huge. If anything failed, the blame would land on me first. As plans moved forward, I learned my aunt planned to attend. The thought made my stomach twist. This would be the first time we faced each other publicly since the meeting. Preparation consumed my days. I coordinated schedules, confirmed speakers, and double-checked every detail. I slept little, driven by the need to prove consistency. On the day of the forum, the hall filled early. Parents watched me closely as I moved between tasks. Everything ran smoothly. Then I saw my aunt enter. She looked unsure, scanning the room. When our eyes met, she looked away. Midway through the event, a technical issue threatened to stop the program. I stepped in, worked with the team, and fixed it quickly. Applause followed. My aunt witnessed everything. I saw the shift in her face. The story she had built no longer matched reality. After the forum ended successfully, parents congratulated me. Mr. Bello thanked me publicly again. I knew the moment of truth with my aunt was close. There would be no audience this time. Just honesty. And I was ready for it. My aunt approached me after the hall emptied. Her voice was low, no longer sharp. She said she needed to talk. We stepped outside where the air felt heavy but calm. She admitted she felt overshadowed by my quiet consistency. She said people trusted me without effort, while she worked hard for approval. Hearing that surprised me. I told her her words had hurt me deeply. I explained how long I carried the label she gave me. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. She listened. For the first time, she didn't interrupt. Her shoulders slumped and she apologized. Not perfectly, but honestly. She said fear made her cruel. Fear of losing control. Fear of being ignored. I accepted her apology, not because it erased the past, but because I wanted peace. I told her respect mattered more than pride. She nodded and said she understood now why the principal trusted me. That admission felt like closure settling in. We parted quietly. No hugs, no promises, just truth. That night, I felt lighter. I had faced the source of the pain without anger. The next chapter of my life wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about growth. And for the first time, that growth felt steady and real. With the tension resolved, my work at the school took on new meaning. I wasn't just fixing problems anymore. I was helping shape trust. Parents began involving me in planning discussions. Teachers asked for my input. Each request felt earned, not forced. One afternoon, I was asked to mentor a group of students helping with school events. Teaching them responsibility reminded me of my own journey. I stressed the importance of quiet effort and follow-through. I saw understanding in their eyes. My aunt kept her distance but no longer spoke against me. That silence was enough. At a staff meeting, Mr. Bello shared how the school had improved through teamwork. He credited reliability as the foundation. I felt proud without feeling exposed. Later, a parent told me my story changed how they judged others. That comment stayed with me. I realized my experience wasn't just personal. It had become an example. That night, I reflected on how quickly life can shift when truth is given space. I no longer feared being misunderstood. I had learned that patience paired with action builds something stronger than defense ever could. The road ahead would still have challenges, but I no longer walked it carrying someone else's false story. I carried my own truth, steady and clear. A month later, the school faced budget cuts. Tension returned. But this time, I was part of the solution. I helped review expenses and suggest alternatives. Some parents resisted change, others trusted my judgment. That balance reminded me how fragile trust can be. When difficult decisions were made, criticism followed. I felt the weight of responsibility press down again. But I didn't shrink. I communicated clearly, explained reasons, and listened to concerns. Slowly, the anger softened. My aunt attended one of those meetings. When someone questioned my role, she surprised me by defending my work. Her voice was calm, firm, and brief. That moment closed a long chapter between us. After the meeting, Mr. Bellows smiled and said, "Growth often shows up quietly." I understood what he meant. At home, I felt gratitude, not for recognition, but for resilience. I realized being reliable didn't mean never making mistakes. It meant standing present, even when things were hard. The label that once haunted me now felt distant. I had earned something better than approval. I had earned confidence. And that confidence no longer depended on anyone else's opinion. As the school year moved forward, my role became permanent. The offer felt official, but the work felt familiar. I spent afternoons walking through halls, checking progress, greeting students. The school no longer felt like a place I defended. It felt like a place I belonged. One student asked why I always stayed late. I told them responsibility doesn't clock out early. They laughed, but I saw understanding. My aunt and I spoke rarely, but when we did, the tension was gone. We kept conversations honest and short. At a community gathering, someone introduced me as dependable. That word landed differently now. It felt earned, not ironic. I thought back to the night my name was nearly destroyed. How quickly lies can spread, how slowly truth walks. But truth arrives. It always does. I wrote those thoughts down, hoping to remember the lesson. Later, Mr. Bellow asked if I would speak at the next parents' meeting. The idea scared me. Standing where I once felt humiliated felt symbolic. I agreed. Not for attention, but for closure. The story that began in shame would end in calm strength, and I was ready to tell it, simply and honestly. The night of the meeting arrived. The hall looked the same, but I felt different. I stood at the front, steady and calm. I spoke about teamwork, patience, and fairness. I didn't mention my aunt. I didn't mention pain. I focused on growth. Parents listened. Some nodded, others smiled. I ended by saying reliability is proven over time, not claimed in words. The room stayed quiet, then applause followed. I stepped back, heart pounding but peaceful. My aunt approached later and thanked me for my restraint. She said I showed more strength than she ever had. I accepted the words without pride. That night, I walked home slowly, breathing in the quiet. The past no longer chased me. The story that once hurt me had reshaped me, and I knew something deeply now. Being reliable isn't about perfection, it's about presence. I had learned that lesson the hard way, but I would never forget it. Life settled into a steady rhythm. Challenges came, but none shook me the way that night had. I watched new volunteers join, unsure and nervous. I guided them gently, remembering how it felt to be judged too soon. One day, a teacher asked how I stayed calm under pressure. I told her I had learned what silence and patience could do. The school thrived. Small changes made big differences. My aunt moved on, focusing on her own growth. We weren't close, but we were respectful. That was enough. Sometimes I thought about the version of me who stood frozen in shame. I wished I could tell them to hold on. Because truth always rises. I carried that lesson forward, not just at school, but everywhere. Reliability wasn't something others gave me. It was something I lived. And no one could take that away again. The real test came when another volunteer was questioned during a planning meeting. A parent said the volunteer was careless and unreliable, using the same sharp tone my aunt once used on me. The room grew tense. I felt my chest tighten because I recognized that moment too well. I stayed quiet at first, watching the volunteer shrink into their seat. Then I spoke. I didn't raise my voice or accuse anyone. I simply asked what facts supported the claim. The room went silent. The parent hesitated, unable to answer clearly. I suggested we review the records before judging someone's character. The shift was slow but clear. People nodded, the tension eased. The volunteer looked at me with relief. After the meeting, several parents thanked me for stepping in. One said they never realized how damaging quick labels could be. Hearing that felt powerful in a quiet way. Later, alone, I thought about how easily lies grow when no one challenges them. I realized I had crossed an invisible line. I was no longer just protecting my own name, I was protecting fairness itself. That night, I understood the full circle of my journey. Pain had taught me courage, silence had taught me timing, and standing up calmly had become my new strength. I was no longer afraid of unfair words, I knew how to stop them. As the school year came to an end, Mr. Bello asked to meet with me privately. His office felt calm, filled with papers and soft light. He thanked me for my steady work and said the school had changed because of it. Hearing that made me pause. I had never expected my quiet efforts to matter this much. He told me reliability builds trust faster than talent alone. Those words stayed with me. He offered me a long-term role with clear responsibilities and support. This time, there was no fear attached, only clarity. I accepted without hesitation. Walking out of his office, I felt something close to peace. Not excitement, not pride, peace. That evening, I sat alone and reflected on the journey. The humiliation, the doubt, the long silence, the truth rising slowly. Every step had shaped me. I realized I no longer needed validation from crowds or titles. I trusted myself now. When I looked at my phone, I saw a short message from my aunt wishing me well. No apology, no explanation, just respect. That was enough. I understood then that healing doesn't always come with dramatic moments. Sometimes it comes quietly, when both sides finally let go. And I was ready to move forward without carrying the past behind me anymore. The closing ceremony arrived on a warm afternoon. Parents filled the hall again, but this time the air felt lighter. I sat near the front, not hiding, not nervous, just present. Students performed, teachers spoke, and awards were handed out. When my name was mentioned for service recognition, applause followed. I stood briefly, nodded, and sat back down. It felt right. I noticed my aunt sitting a few rows away. She caught my eye and gave a small nod. No tension, no fear, just understanding. That moment meant more than any speech. As the ceremony continued, I thought about how quickly people judge what they don't understand. I thought about how easy it is to believe the loudest voice. But I also thought about how truth waits. It doesn't rush, it simply stays consistent until it is seen. After the event, parents thanked me, but I kept responses short. I didn't want praise to define me. Walking outside, I felt the sun on my face and breathed deeply. The school that once felt like a place of shame, now felt like a place of growth. I realized something important that day. My story wasn't about being proven right. It was about becoming stronger without becoming bitter. And that strength would guide me long after this chapter closed. Life slowly returned to routine, but I wasn't the same person anymore. I noticed how I handled stress differently now. I listened more. I reacted less. When problems came up, I faced them calmly. People trusted that calm. That trust felt earned. One afternoon, a new volunteer asked how I learned to stay steady when others doubted me. I smiled and said it took time. I didn't explain further. Some lessons are best lived, not taught. At home, I reflected on how close I came to walking away that night at the parents' meeting. If I had left, the story might have ended differently. Staying had been hard, but staying had allowed truth to surface. I understood now that strength isn't loud, it doesn't rush to defend itself. It waits for the right moment and speaks clearly when needed. I wrote these thoughts down, wanting to remember them during future challenges. My aunt and I spoke occasionally, calmly and honestly. We weren't close, but we were no longer enemies. That balance felt healthy. As days passed, I felt gratitude instead of anger. The past no longer hurt when I thought about it. It had become part of my foundation. And foundations, even cracked ones, can hold something strong when repaired with truth and patience. On my last walk through the school that year, I moved slowly, taking everything in. The halls were quiet. The work was done. I remembered standing frozen while my name was torn apart. I remembered the heat in my face and the weight in my chest. That version of me felt distant now. I understood something clearly. Reliability isn't proven in one moment. It is built through many small choices made when no one is watching. People will talk, some will doubt, some will twist stories. But truth doesn't need to argue. It only needs time and consistency. I had learned that the hard way. As I stepped outside, I felt calm, not proud, not angry, just steady. The story that began with public shame ended with quiet confidence. No applause followed me, no voices called my name, and that was fine. I carried something better now. I carried self-trust. I knew who I was, regardless of what anyone said. And if another voice ever tried to define me unfairly, I would not panic. I would not shout. I would simply keep showing up. Because in the end, reliability speaks for itself.